It's been roughly 6 years since Sean Murray and his team at Hello Games released one of the most anticipated video games of all time, No Man's Sky. And we all know the story by now. Promises of amazing features were made. But these promises were then broken, and so were the hearts of gamers all over the world. When No Man's Sky launched, there were so many features and mechanics that were missing. Missing because they had never been there in the first place. And after staying radio silent for months after the disastrous launch, Hello Games started working hard on a project that for all intents and purposes seemed like a doomed mission. So now, 6 years later, I dove into No Man's Sky again, in order to answer the age-old question: is it worth it? How's it going, guys? MrHulthen here. And just recently I decided to give No Man's Sky another chance. And in this video I'll try to give you a straight answer whether you should spend your hard-earned money on this game or not. So let's just jump right into it. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with No Man's Sky, this is actually a fairly simple game. It's in essence a very chill and laid-back space sandbox/survival game, where you collect stuff and build stuff in order to be able to collect more stuff and build more stuff. Now, you can choose between different difficulties that range from straight up creative mode, where you don't have to worry about different hazards, to regular normal mode, survival mode, and then something called expedition mode. Now, I'll be talking about No Man's Sky just in general, so no matter what mode you choose, it's still going to be roughly the same thing. But expedition mode is definitely the one that's set apart from the others, at least at the start. You see, expedition mode is something that's also fairly recent, and if you decide to play No Man's Sky after this video, then I can strongly recommend playing through expedition because it simply gives you a large freighter ship from the start, and as you progress through different goals, you get rewarded with blueprints, materials, cosmetics, and many other things. Expedition mode also simply tells you what to do and where to go, so if No Man's Sky seemed daunting at first, this mode will make the game seem a little less frightening to get into, because that seems to be a fairly common issue with a lot of people that haven't tried the game yet. That said, there is one aspect of the game that I have to mention, and it's something that just can't be stressed enough. No Man's Sky has a very specific gameplay loop. One that hasn't changed much since the launch of the game, because, well, it literally is the cornerstone that the game is built around. And what this gameplay loop essentially is you essentially drop down to a planet and use your so-called multi-tool to mine for different materials. You then use said materials to build new tools and improve your ship and multi-tool in order to more effectively gather more materials. And in the starting hours of the game, that's what you're going to spend most of your time doing until you can start jumping between star systems. Speaking of which, when you do actually get to space, this is when No Man's Sky opens up a fair bit, as you'll be presented with an array of things to do, like going to a space station to trade materials and upgrade your equipment, buy new ships, start missions that reward you with unique materials, and so on. But then you'll also soon be able to visit a special space station that's also a player hub, where you can start co-op missions with other players, buy cosmetics, and much, much more. And if you didn't start the game in expedition mode, then you'll soon find that you can buy entire fleets of ships if you have the credits. Fleets that you can then send on missions, and you can even select squadrons to defend you from hostile ships. Your freighter can also serve as your main base of operations, and the devs at Hello Games even added a more advanced base building aspect to the freighter. Which is awesome, because the freighters normally acted like gigantic storage containers before. But now they actually feel like a necessary part of the gameplay. Now, speaking of ships, Hello Games recently added a sort of horror aspect to the game, as there are now derelict ships that you'll come across every now and then. Ships that you can then board and explore while looking for loot. But as I found out myself, these ships are infested with dangerous alien life, so you gotta be careful as you move around the ships. Now, as a fan of space horror, this was quite the cool addition to a game that's usually very laid back and colorful. And, well, I guess that's the biggest changes ever since No Man's Sky launched. It's no longer just this resource collecting time waster that it proved to be on launch day. Hello Games have added many new features and mechanics that makes the game feel more impactful in a way. Whenever you're doing something in No Man's Sky, it always feels like you're building towards something. That something could be for a part that's needed for a base on a planet, or for a new engine for your freighter that will allow you to travel to new systems that become more alien and more interesting the more you jump from one system to the other. And this moves us to all the new things that Hello Games have added to the procedural generation. Like, you can now actually see the ground shake around you while mining for resources, and out of absolutely nowhere, a massive alien worm explodes out of the ground, scaring you witless but also making you realize that you have to be ready for anything with this game. Which is something that I couldn't say for No Man's Sky when it launched. Because back then, everything about this game was so mind-numbingly simple. Every planet and every system was basically the same thing but in different colors. No Man's Sky today, however, actually provides you with interesting environments and creatures that actually make sense most of the time. However, with all this said, no matter how much Hello Games have added so far, whether that be new ships, base building things, things that make your multi-tool a weapon of mass destruction, new ways for creatures and aliens to be generated and so on, yes, despite Hello Games having added the Normandy SR-1 as a frigate to your fleet, which, no guys, you cannot fly it yourself. I just simply sadly can't really play this game for more than a few hours at a time. And the simple explanation for this is, as I mentioned before, the gameplay loop, which still remains somewhat the same since launch. Now, I know what some of you guys are gonna say. You don't have to mine for resources in the later stages of the game because then you'll just be able to buy everything and anything you need. Yeah, well the thing is, when you get to that point where you can buy everything, there's really not much you can do after that point. Except for, you know, building stuff. I should know, I made some bank back in the day. To put it simply, I'd say that No Man's Sky is a game that you sort of have to be in the mood for. Sean Murray and Hello Games have added a lot of things to the experience, and they've more than enough made up for that terribly awful launch all those years ago. As much as I'd love to say that No Man's Sky is one of the greatest games I've ever played just because of the sheer monstrous volume of content that Hello Games have added, hell, there's literally too many things that they've added to the game for me to fit in this video. The simple reality is that the gameplay is just not that much different. Aside from the resource gathering, stuff like ship flight and combat hasn't changed much. It still has this arcadey feel to it, and after having killed way too many pirates at this point, I'm sort of over the space combat part of the game. So the simple issue here is that, well, gameplay is simply the only thing that this game is going for it. Because the story is just really not there. Sure, you're provided with different paths you can take to make your way through the universe, but these paths never lead to any amazing conclusions. This is also partly because of the type of game that No Man's Sky is. It's not really a story-based game with proper characters and storylines like that of, say, Mass Effect or an innumerable amount of games out there that you can get absorbed in. However, that isn't to say that the game is not great, because it is. Look, what I'm saying is that yes, it's definitely worth buying if you're into resource collecting and base building games, and, well, a colorful representation of space. So if you do decide to get No Man's Sky, just remember what type of game it is. Anyway, what do you think about No Man's Sky? Comment below and let me know. And as always, have a great day, guys. MrHulthen signing out. Oh, and I almost forgot, if you do plan on buying No Man's Sky, or if you already have it, the next time you're out exploring or gathering resources or what have you, try putting on the galaxy map theme from Mass Effect. Or you could just go ahead and use my reimagined version that I had made just a while ago. Trust me, you'll thank me later.